Hello everyone, today we are going to present about comparing British and communist propaganda during the Malayan emergency. Let's start with the abstract, which summarizes the study. So the Malayan emergency happened in 1948 to until 1960 was a conflict between British forces and the MCP centered on ideological warfare. So in this abstract, I have highlighted it using the green, red, blue and orange in color. So if you have seen, the red one is our objective studies, which is to evaluate the method of propaganda used by both sides, and second is to analyze how effective this method were in influencing the Malayan people. So the blue color will be our finding, and in the orange color will be our summarize of the studies. Moving on to the introduction, which provide out the foundation for our study. Overview of the Malayan emergency, where this was an armed conflict between British colonial forces and the MCP. It was battle of ideologies, British anti-communism versus MCP communist and anti-colonial agenda. The key strategy used were British focused on promoting stability and development and anti-communism, while the MCP highlight socio-economic inequalities and grievance against the colonial rules. So the critical tool is where the both sides recognize propaganda as essential to their strategies, and propaganda became a critical element of ideological warfare, especially in the context of the Cold War. This focus of the study where we are going to compare the propaganda tactics of the British and the MCP, and we also analyze the impact on the public and the role in shaping the conflict's outcome.
Next, I will start the finding analysis of our topic, and I will briefly cover the historical context of the Malayan emergency. The conflict began on the 18th June 1948 when the British declared a state of emergency after communist guerrillas assassinated 3 plantation managers. The Malayan Communist Party, or MCP, aimed to overthrow British rule, fueled by post-war tensions and the failure of Malayan Union proposal, which had angered both Malays and Chinese communities. The British responded with military action and the Brits planned isolating guerrillas by recollecting rural Chinese into new villages. Under General Garrett Templar, anti-insurgency effort intensified, offering rewards for surrender. By the mid-1950s, the MCP sought negotiation but refused to surrender unconditionally. After Malayan gained independence in 1957, the communists lost support and the emergency ended in 1960. In total, thousands of lives were lost in this critical chapter of Malayan history.
I'm going to continue with the British propaganda. British propaganda had played the key role in isolating the MNLA and gaining civilian support. The campaign had 3 main goals: to undermine communist ideology by portraying communist violence, promote racial unity to unite Malaya diverse community, and build trust in British governance by framing it as stability and benevolent. There are 3 key strategies include print media like poster and newspaper that highlight the communist violence, grassroots campaign with the local leader, radio broadcasts in multiple languages targeting different communities, and airdrop leaflet encouraging defection and resistance to communism. Another initiative was the Brit Plan, relocating rural villages into new villages to cut off MNLA support. While the propaganda succeeded in isolating the MNLA and gaining local and international backing, its impact was uneven, challenged by the communist counter-propaganda and legitimate anti-colonial sentiment.
So today I'm going to explain about the communist propaganda during Malayan emergency. So I'm going to divide it into 3 parts, which are objective, factors that are leading the communist propaganda, and lastly is the impacts of communist propaganda. So first objective is to gain support, and especially from rural Chinese, and then second is to weaken the British rule at the time, and the third is to recruit fighters to counter-attack the British people. And then, so why does this communist propaganda happen is firstly is because the economic struggles after World War II. Many people are unemployment, and then the second is ethnic bias, because although Chinese people are majority in the people, they still face this discrimination from British people. And lastly is the inspiration from others, because of the communist propaganda at the other Asia region is successful, so it led to this. So finally is the impact of propaganda. Firstly is recruit more people, and the second is British because of the successful of communist propaganda during the early time, the British people, they counter-attack the communist propaganda. And the third is public shift. From the during early days, they support the communist propaganda, and then after that, because of the British people tell them the truth, they face back from communist propaganda.
So the first key point is target audience. In the context of similarities, both of British and communists are forced to use the propaganda to influence the local population in Malaya. So for example, like they usually target the local population in Malaya, which consists of a mix of ethnic, like Malays, Chinese and Indian. Meanwhile, for communists, they aim to influence the local farmer who are very poor and oppressed by British. And next, in terms of differences, it can be seen through their target audience and their message that they promote. For example, like the British aim to maintain control by portraying themselves as a protector against the communism, and meanwhile the communists focus on the rural population, offering a vision of social justice and independence. And last but not least, for this key point is effectiveness. So basically, British strategy was succeed in gathering the international support, meanwhile the communist strategy were resonated with the oppressed farmer. And next key points is use of media tools and symbols. In the terms of similarities, both of them were forced to use media and symbols to spread their propaganda. For example, like the British used a range of media tools like print media, radio broadcast, and poster to show their message. And other than that, they also use symbols such as the British crown to show their authority and power. And for communists, on the other hand, they target the poor rural farmers using a simple, powerful poster and speeches to communicate. And also, they use symbols like hammer and sickle to represent their working class. And next, in terms of differences, British more focused on portraying themselves as a stabilizing force. Meanwhile, the communists presented themselves as the champions of the oppressed. And in terms of effectiveness, the British were able to communicate with the people widely through multiple platforms of media, such as radio and so on, to spread their propaganda and reinforce their authority. On the other hand, the communist propaganda was more focused on offering a vision of a fair class society, and this kind of approach is more effective in the rural area. And last but not least, the third key point is themes and message. In terms of similarities, both of them were forced to use strong themes in their messaging to sway public opinion, but the focus and the content of their themes are very different. For example, like the British emphasized law, order, and prosperity under their control, but the communists were more focused on anti-colonialism, social justice, and independence. And next, in terms of differences, British side always portray the communists as a dangerous and portray them as a people that can threaten the stability of Malaya. And meanwhile, for the communists, they tend to portray themselves as a leader of nationalist movement fighting for Malaya's independence. And next, in terms of effectiveness, the propaganda of the British is aimed to create a fear and urgency, portraying themselves as the only people capable of maintaining peace and security. And meanwhile, for communists, the effectiveness can be seen through their message about social justice and the redistribution of power that effective in gaining the support from the local and especially from those who were poor and oppressed under the British rule. And that's all from me. I will pass to the next presenter. Thank you.
Next is challenge and limitation of both propaganda. First, challenge and limitation of British propaganda. First, gaining trust among the local population, which is the ethnic Chinese mistrust due to historical marginalization, settlement programs seen as oppressive, and anti-communist messaging failed to resonate fully. And second is limited cultural understanding. Western focused narrative poorly aligned with local concerns. Heart and Minds campaign overlooked deeper socio-economic issue, and language barrier limited the outreach to rural areas. And next is communist propaganda challenge and limitation. First, ethnic division. MCP perceived as Chinese movement failed to engage Malay communities due to ideological difference, and Marxist-Leninist ideas conflict with Islamic values. And second is violent undermining credibility, which is the use of fear tactic aligned potential supporters. Action contradict their liberalization narrative and enable British to label MCP as a destabilizing force.
So, okay, for conclusions, what we have seen is both British and MCP use propaganda to influence public opinion during the emergency, while British propaganda focused on anti-communism stability and development, where they use social media, psychological operations, and campaign like Hearts and Mind. Ultimately, it was more successful due to its alignment with global anti-communist sentiment, while the MCP propaganda highlight grievances such as inequality and colonial exploitation, and gained limited support, mainly among Chinese community. However, its reliance on violence and divisive tactics hindered its broader appeal. The key in this propaganda play a vital role in shaping the conflict's outcome, where the British approach had maintained a pro-Western government, while the MCP strategies had limited success. This study highlights how propaganda can influence ideological struggles in time of conflict. That's all from us. Thank you.